Good evening, everyone. It's Christopher Hale here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, a candidate for United States Congress here in the 4th Congressional District. Every night throughout the week, we are having folks across the community, but also across my life and my career in public service and advocacy. I've said time and again that I'm asking for the high honor to represent you in the United States Congress. So you should ask for the opportunity to investigate who I am, what brings me to the table, what values, what my background is. And tonight I have an incredible honor, truly a high honor, of introducing to you all Michael Weir. Before I introduce Michael, I want to tell you a little bit about how I met Michael. At 22 years old, I had an opportunity both at the White House and Michael gave me an opportunity to come aboard campaign for President Obama to do faith outreach. Michael, at 23, I think 23, 24 years old, was the faith outreach director for President Obama. I believe probably the youngest person to ever hold such a position in this country. Michael and I are an odd couple. Michael is an evangelical from Buffalo. I'm a Catholic from here in Tennessee. But I found in Michael an incredible man, a man that deserves tremendous credit for what he's done as bringing forth faith as a means to bringing people together. Michael's first loyalty wasn't even to the president. It was to his faith. It wasn't to the party. It was to his faith. And I have learned so much from him. And there's no chance that I have the honor of being here, being a candidate for United States Congress, of having successes I've had in my career without Michael. And so I owe so much to him. And Michael, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well. It's so good to be with you.
Hey, Michael, thank you for joining us. Can you tell folks here in Tennessee and in our live stream a little bit about yourself, how you came in and you're growing up and then coming into the opportunities you had for President Obama being his faith outreach director?
Yeah, sure. So I became a Christian when I was 15, and it changed my life, and kind of realized that at that point that sort of everything had to change. So for a while I thought, well, hey, I need to go to seminary, become a pastor. I just wanted to do sort of follow my faith the best and in the most, kind of strongest way I knew how. But thankfully I had a pastor in my life who said, Michael, if you look around, there are Christians that aren't pastors. There are Christians in the world. And I said, that's a good observation. I had been interested in politics from a very young age. My grandfather was, greatest generation, fought in World War II, came back, was a union guy, was served in his community. And that was a great example to me. And so, I was kind of led to sort of the vocational question of my life has been, what does it mean to be faithful in public life, in public things? And at a few years after I became a Christian, this young senator by the name of Barack Obama was a state senator at the time, was speaking at the Democratic convention. He talked about the fact that we're our brother's keeper. He said that we worship an awesome God in the blue states, just as folks in red states worship an awesome God. And that was really moving to me, that you had someone who was willing to speak so strongly about not just his own faith, but the role that faith played in the country. And I said, I need to work for this man. And due to persistence and, some would say providence, I ended up meeting him in February of 2007 and went to Iowa during the first presidential campaign, and then was honored to be asked to serve on his inaugural committee, and then in the White House faith-based office, where I helped the president navigate religious issues and relationships out of the White House faith-based office. That's about connecting the federal government to religious and other nonprofits who are serving those most in need, and finding ways that we could work together, both through financial partnerships, but often through non-financial partnerships, sharing best practices and just doing the best we can, sort of an all hands on deck approach to serving those in need. And then, as you said, Chris, had the honor, I knew you a bit at the White House, but then we had the honor of working together on that 2012 reelection campaign. And so that's been kind of my journey I wrote a book about it called Reclaiming Hope, that sort of tells the story, not just in my time with President Obama, but also it tries to give a perspective about the role that faith has played in this country, particularly over the last decade, 15 years. But I'll end it there, Chris. But that's a bit of my background.
Can we talk about that word, hope? I think about, as a Christian, as a person of faith, St. Paul said there were three great gifts: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these was love. And I've always felt like hope got this unfair, vague, supporting role. But to me, as a person of faith, as someone who's involved in politics, and also as someone like you who had not nearly as prominent but an experience in the Obama world, hope wasn't just mere optimism, was it? It was actually hope had feet. It forced you to move and create something. How can you talk a little bit about that idea? What does it mean to reclaim hope, and what does hope mean to you in public life?
Yeah, I could say so much here. Hope is about possibility, and you know what to hope for when your loves are, sort of, to use Augustinian language, when your loves are rightly ordered. And so when you love your neighbor, it means you will their good, and hope is holding out that possibility that good can still happen, that no matter how dark the circumstances, there's still a possibility that it will be turned to good. And that isn't just a passive sort of waiting on something good to happen. It's the expectation that God is working in the midst of circumstances, and that you're called to work towards the good in the circumstances you're in. And so obviously that has applications in all kinds of ways, in our personal lives, in our relationships. But hope also has an application in our public lives as well. It means, to me, not giving up on your neighbors. It means not succumbing to cynicism that will just never get anything right, that we could never work together, that we could never find common ground, that we could never do something good for our neighbors. And so hope is fueled by love, and it's also an expression of love. It is the expression that there's still the possibility of good in all things, and it's at the very center of personal faith, but it's also something that has real public implications. And so yeah, it's a really important idea, Chris.
It's interesting to me, Michael, as I kind of think about these ideas of hope and virtue. You're a Democrat, correct?
Yeah, I am.
Why are you a Democrat? How are you a Democrat and a Christian? I get that all the time in Tennessee. Why are you a Democrat? Why are you a Christian? Or sorry, how is a Christian a Democrat, and how does that inform you?
Well, look, it's not because I think Democrats are right about everything.
We are.
and if you're a member of your party because you think they're right about everything, then your party didn't have the same platform positions 10 years ago as they did today. And so you're always going to find something to disagree with your party, because parties change all the time. If you only found yourself in a political party that you agreed with 100%, that's going to change real quick. I'm a Democrat. Look, I mean, part of it is family history. Like I said, my grandfather wasn't a very partisan guy, but he was an FDR Democrat. He believed in the dignity of work. He believed that hard work ought to be respected in this country. I'm a Democrat because civil rights issues are the early motivating issues in my life, and voting rights very important to me. And I'm a Democrat because I believe that government has the ability to do good.
Yeah.
I believe that government is a shared enterprise, and that as citizens we're called to improve government, not tear it down, not be cynical, except for when we could use it for our own self-interest and our own self-aggrandizement. But I believe politics, in my language, I believe politics is a forum for loving your neighbor, and I believe the Democratic Party is the party that believes that that's possible right now, and so. I'm a Democrat for so many reasons. That doesn't mean I agree with them on everything. I do think that there's a obligation that, and Chris, I know this will bring back memories, but I had the opportunity to speak in Sioux County in Iowa, the most conservative county in Iowa, to the Democrats there. They invited me. I was speaking at a Christian college, Dordt College in Sioux City, and then the local Democratic Party heard I was going to be there, so they invited me out to speak. And I went there and I told them the same thing I'm telling you, that actually the Democratic Party needs dissent. The Democratic Party needs folks, particularly in diverse communities and politically diverse communities, to make clear to the party where they might see things differently, and that only makes the party stronger, I believe.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because like a homogenous party is a party without a future, and like I mean, look, like I am running in one of the most rural and red districts in this country, and I love AOC, but it's a different reality, and we have to have different segments of the party. And like you and I, it's interesting. We've gotten in trouble a few times in our own various ways for standing against the party, but that's not a bad thing. The party can't be an idol to us. It's a means, it's a vehicle, but right. It can't be all in all.
And Chris, that's a healthy view. And what happens when you have that view is it actually puts politics in its proper place. Mm-hmm. It means that there's not this expectation, for all the talk about identity politics. One of the greatest forms of identity politics is thinking that because you are registered as a member of a party, that party fully represents you, and that's not what parties are meant for. And when you understand that doesn't sort of motivate you to disengage. That actually says that, hey, I could be a part of these systems. I could say that I'm a Democrat. You could, someone else could say that they're a Republican, but like in an election that's coming up this November, someone who's been a Republican their whole life, you don't owe the Republican Party anything. And it works the other way too. You don't, if you voted one way in the last election, every 2 years, every election is an opportunity for you to say what you believe and what you think is best for your neighbors now. I think that's going to be a critical choice. There are a lot of folks that want to make people feel like, oh, you voted for, and let's just talk about it. I was doing a Fox News interview, and they asked me about faith voters and President Trump, and I said I believe that faith voters saw that President Trump didn't share their values, and that there was going to be a real opportunity for Democrats to ask for their votes. And the anchor said something to me, Chris, like, well, that's so disrespectful to Trump voters. And I said, no, that Trump voters don't owe Trump anything. He owes them. And what I'd say is he's fallen short. And so yeah, I mean, that's a critical, if folks could just think about parties in the right way, that parties don't own them. It's actually they who have the say in the political party, not the political party that has a say in their views, then our politics would be a lot healthier.
Well, I think one of the things I've always admired about you, and the things people need to understand about Michael, is Michael will be the lone voice in the room, speaking for the minority, speaking for the outcast, speaking for the excluded. Michael has time and again, I would say, challenged the party to live up to these values that are at the highest core of our principles. And and let's be honest, Michael, you probably have taken some visceral hits for that. You've probably taken financial hits. You've probably taken prominence, but that's what we're supposed to do. We're Christians. We're people of faith. Like our allegiance, if the party becomes an idol, we just use it as a means of grabbing on the power, we kind of look down the ladder and we forgot who we were. If I'm completely loyal to everything the party says, I've lost a sense of who I am. When I take the oath of office on January 3rd, it will be on the Bible, to the Constitution of the United States, and to the people of Tennessee. It's not to the Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. It's to the people of Tennessee. And so can you talk a little bit about experiences of you standing against a party, and if you're open to some pain that's caused?
Yeah, look, and it's whether the important thing is to keep in mind the humanity of the folks you're dealing with. There are not many people in our politics, at least not folks you and I worked with, Chris, that are fueled by antagonism, that are out to get folks. Sometimes there are just real policy disagreements that are often motivated by different experiences people have had. And so, in my book, I recount, some of those differences of opinion. I believe that, and I don't know how much, you want to get into these kinds of issues, but I believe the Democratic Party has to have a more positive vision of religious freedom in this country. That yes, the Republicans, some Republicans have abused the concept. That doesn't mean that we throw religious freedom out. It means that we need to advance a positive, pluralistic vision that includes everybody, that includes Muslims, that includes conservative Catholics, that includes Orthodox Jews, that includes the whole, that includes
evangelicals,
that includes people of no faith at all. And so, I press the party there because I understand it's politically possible to just point out some of the extreme positions of your opponents and sort of allow and not feel like you need to offer much yourself. But that's not the best answer for the American people. I think that's not what's going to make broad sections of the country comfortable with our leadership. And so, I've pressed that issue. But I'll say, Chris, it's important, even in, and a big reason why I wrote my book, two things. I wanted to help conservative religious folks understand the values that were motivating President Obama, even when they disagreed with him. I wanted them to know that, understand that no one, like I said, no one in the White House was waking up thinking, how do I make conservative religious folks upset today? There's just in certain cases there were different prioritization of values and different positions. I also wanted to help Democrats understand religious people. That yes, there are some overblown criticism that aren't based on reality, but there are also sincere religious disagreements with the administration I work for the Obama administration, and with Democrats generally. And we'll be better off as a party. We'll be better off as public servants, not if we just sweep those criticisms under the rug, but deal with them head on and take people at their word and understand that folks are, until proven otherwise, that folks are generally just trying to advance what they think is right. And that doesn't mean we'll always agree, Chris, but one thing I've always respected about you is that you won't sort of hand wave off disagreement. You want to listen to people, and you want to hear what from what they're saying you can affirm, and you could say, do you know what, there is a place for that in the public life, in the public policy debate, and that's so critical.
Well, my favorite Tennessee author is, you probably know him, Alex Hale, the author of Roots. And he has this famous motto that he lived by, which is find the good and praise it. And what that means is, like, it's not simply, as you said, we hide among disagreements, but we find out those areas where we can work together. in Christian terminology, it's orthopraxis.
That's
Where
right.
can we work together? You and I. We might not see the same worldview, but where can we work together? And I think one of the things that that I'll be running against in a lot of headways is there's a lot of folks around here who think that the Democratic Party hates Christians, that the Democratic Party is anti-Christian. I'll be honest. There is a very small segment of our party, where that might be true. We have to acknowledge there are some anti-Christian forces. It's small, but they are there. But that's not the vast majority of the Democratic Party. That certainly wasn't Barack Obama's Democratic Party. It's not Joe Biden's Democratic Party. Can you talk about the Democratic embrace of faith in positive ways you've seen it in your career?
Yeah, well, look, it was an open question as to whether President Obama would even have a faith-based office. A Pew study came out showing that media mentions of the faith-based office under the Bush administration, which created the office, were overwhelmingly negative. So this was an office that was viewed as a sort of a Bush-era experiment that the next Democratic administration didn't really need to continue because the perception of it was so bad. But President Obama decided not to go with sort of whatever the political sort of pundits suggested, or whatever sort of certain wings of his party might have wanted. He thought that, especially, remember, in the middle of an economic recovery, that it was the faith community that was going to be in many cases, represent the most trusted institutions, the core of communities in need. And so he gave a speech during the campaign in 2008, and then at the National Prayer Breakfast, which, by the way, his administration defended in court when it was challenged by a secular group. The Obama administration defended and won that case in court, saying that a National Day of Prayer was okay. But he gave a speech at the National Day of Prayer saying, look, there are some issues that we're going to disagree on when it comes to the intersection of faith and politics, religion and government. But what I believe is, and he said this as someone who worked with churches in Chicago, as he'd say, in the shadow of shuttered steel mills. He said, we need an all hands on deck approach to the problems of poverty, the problems of unemployment in this country. And Chris, we're in another time now where the faith community is going to be essential to getting the country through this period. We're going to need a president. We're going to need a Congress that understands the central role the faith plays. And to your question, the Democratic Party is overwhelmingly religious.
Yes, by far.
Yes, by far. We have a diverse coalition. We have members of our party that are not religious, and we're happy to have them. We're glad to be a big tent, robust party. We have evangelicals, we have Catholics, we have everybody. But the Democratic Party is overwhelmingly religious, and so it's a part of our DNA. Our most devoted, our most passionate supporters are also among the most religious people in the country. And when you think about the role the Black church has played,
Reverend Barr.
Yeah. And think about it now. It's not just the role the Black church has played, and that leaders like Barbara and Barbara Williams Skinner, who's a friend of both of ours, has played in supporting the party. They played a role in challenging the party on some of these issues too, and they still have a seat at the table. And I have a seat at the table. That you have a seat at the table. And so, yeah, there are some real challenges. There are some debates internal to the party that we have to have. But that's democracy. And what I'd say, the last thing I'd say on this, Chris, is for folks who are concerned about whether the Democratic Party has room for people of faith or not, one of the best things that they could do is to support candidates who say that there should be a room for people of faith in the party. If it's such a major point of concern, then why not strengthen the hand of folks by putting people in office and in positions of power that will take, in my view, the right side of that argument.
Well, it's interesting. One of our good friends, one of my best friends, is Elizabeth Bruning, of course, now I guess New York Times columnist. And what's so remarkable is some of the populist movements, some of the very far left-wing movements of this country and this movement are fueled by religious worldview. So a lot of times it's religious folks who are challenging the establishment, the corporate mentality. Michael, I want you to take this question. Can you see that? Michael, what do you say about the GOP proclaiming that party of God is being exclusive to them?
Well, look, it was always sort of political idolatry. It was always a form of manipulation and sort of politicking. It was always inappropriate. Uh, C.S. Lewis said, the greatest sort of, I'm paraphrasing here from an essay he wrote called Meditations on the Third Commandment. C.S. Lewis wrote, the greatest temptation when you combine faith and politics is to claim God has said and God has not spoken at all. That's a story of the modern Republican Party claiming to speak for God and putting words in God's mouth that aren't there. But then I'd say things have changed. I think George W. Bush was a good man. I think that he was an earnest man. Disagree with, a number of his policies. I got into politics in response, partly in response to his presidency.
But we're dealing with a different Republican Party today. Not just President Trump, but frankly, the man my friend Chris Hale is running against, who at least there was a ethical consistency. That there was I'm conservative in the sense that I believe that values are deeply important to our politics. That you can't sort of have a public policy and have a culture that's detached from who people are on the inside and how people live their lives. And so we're dealing with a different case now, and that's part of why I think the bar is lower for Democrats who are willing to ask for the votes of people of faith, because they look at the other side and know kind of the jig is up here. We're sick of being manipulated by these sort of totalistic claims that the Republican Party has a monopoly on faith. I think that's just been proven to be laughable in recent years.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Michael. I think the idea that faith voters have been taking it for granted by the Republican Party. You simply take their vote, you ignore their values, even on very conservative issues. Like the moneyed interest of my opponent is not the pro-life values. Obviously, we see that. It's not economic populists who are caring about setting wages and not shipping jobs overseas. It's really his number one interest is the rich lobbyists who take limousines to work and wear silk suits. And I think that I really believe in a Democratic Party that fights first and foremost, as our friend Congressman Tim Ryan says, for the folks to take a shower when they get home, who build this country by the sweat of their brow. Michael, you meant a lot to me in my life. There's no way I'm here without you. We need folks like you. I promise I'm going to make you proud. We're going to win this election.
I know you will.
And I really appreciate all you've done for me in my life and all you're doing for this party and for people of faith and making sure that they have a compelling voice in our party and that conservatives can find a translator for Democratic Party values and faith in you.
Hey, thank you. Great to be with you and know I'm supporting you, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael.
Yep. Thank you.
Folks, Michael Weir is a wonderful man. He is deserving of all the accolades that he's given. He's meant a lot to me. He brought something up there at the end that I want to make very clear. Scott Desjardins courts the religious vote time and again. One of the biggest lies my opponent tells is that he's pro-life. Look at the record. Ask his ex-wife, ask his mistresses, ask the millions of Tennessee without work, without living wages, without health care in rural hospitals, and they'll tell you the truth. Scott Desjardins ain't pro-life one bit, and I'm going to nail him on it this election. I need your support. We're going to win an historic election and bring generational change to Tennessee and America, but I can't do it without you. The two things you can do right now is go to my website, sign up, ChristopherHale.com, Hale. You can give a donation, a $5 a month donation. It goes a long way in helping fund this operation. It doesn't go to me. It doesn't put food in my mouth. It goes to our work, our campaign, and it makes this movement go through all 16 counties. If you want a sign, you can go to christopherhale.com/HaleYes, and we can get you a sign. We have plenty in stock, and we'll put them in all 16 counties across this community. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to get off this live stream, and I want you to tell your friends and your neighbors about this campaign. And here's my promise to you. To every Tennessean who is struggling tonight, whether from this deadly virus, the inability to find good work, a checkered past, or a dim future, I want you to know this. I'm going to walk with you the entire way. Tennessee, help is on the way. We're going to win this election on November 3rd. We're going to beat Scott Desjardins, and we're going to bring the generational change that you and your children deserve. Thank you for being with me.